So now that you have a little bit of an overview about SPSS, I want to give you an overview of the module assignment, and then we're going to go ahead and run Hypothesis 1. So I provided you with a contract that I want you to fill out. I want each group member to state specifically what they're going to do, along with a date when they will get it back to the group. Please let me know if a group member is contributing nothing, and I will assign a 0 for the entire assignment. However, we know we're going to have different students of different abilities, different levels, different backgrounds. So I'm also going to ask that you evaluate how well each member did it, and just take in mind that some people will struggle a little bit more than others with this type of assignment. So with that in mind, I think one good way to split up the assignment, let me show you, here's the rubric. I'm expecting basically 5 sections. And so one way you could split it up is by giving each member of the group a different section to do. You could get this done in the first week, maybe have a deadline of Thursday or Friday, and then swap with another group member and have that second group member read through it, edit it, maybe add some things, and then maybe by the end of the weekend, get it to whoever your group leader is, and they can compile it together and be sure that it reads well. But this is a great way that we can be sure that we're checking each other's work, and by the time you get it to compile, it's just a really good quality product. So what I'm expecting, as always, a professional product, that it's well formatted, there aren't grammar or spelling errors, and then it's about 2 to 3 pages. You are expected to integrate 5 primary sources that you found on your own. Now, one of these could be the stress buffering article that is provided for the 3rd week of this module. I expect APA formatting for in-text and reference lists. So if you know you're really good at this, if you're a psych major, then that might be something that you could contribute in the contract and say, hey, I'll be the one that goes over APA formatting. I'm expecting you to correctly interpret the results of the classified data set. Now, don't worry, I'm about to walk you through this very carefully. In the introduction, you're going to have to identify at least one model of stress and why stress and coping is important in university students. In the first section, you're going to cover Hypothesis 1 and 2, which is related to sort of contextual factors about stress and coping, and integrate research from the text and articles to explain the results. So this is where you can read through the chapter and find some evidence about gender differences or differences based on perceived stress. Just what does a chapter say research is conveying? And then you're going to sort of explain, well, are we seeing that supported in our data? And if we're not, if we have a null result, so if our hypothesis isn't supported, then why do you think that could be? In the second section, you're going to have to cover hypothesis it says hypothesis 4, that should be hypothesis 3, on looking at people's ability to cope. The next section is looking at social support and stress, and then the final section is going to have a nice conclusion covering hypothesis 5 of looking at stress and coping and how this relates to students' health. You can do a bonus if you'd like. If you would like to run your own hypothesis, something that I did not state, so this would mean manipulating the syntax on your own, manipulating the data set on your own, then if you do this correctly, you'll get 2 points. If you attempt this, but there's some incorrect interpretation, then I'll still give your group a point. So let's get started. Here is the table that I'm providing for you, and you can fill this out, and this will be a good thing for you to draw from for writing up your paragraph. So hypothesis 1, people who are older and further along in their college career have more responsibilities and tasks and therefore higher stress. So we're going to look at the correlation between age and perceived stress and the undergraduate stress questionnaire. So a correlation, if you'll remember, we are looking at direction and magnitude. So if something is positively correlated, then that means that as age increases, we're also going to see perceived stress or the undergraduate stress questionnaire increase. This is what we're hypothesizing. If it was negatively correlated, then that would mean that younger people have higher perceived stress and identify more events. Magnitude, we know that a correlation is between -1 and 1. So what would happen if you have a correlation of 2? That means that there's an error. You can't have a correlation of 2. Something of high magnitude would be closer to -1 or 1, and that means there's a really strong correlation. Almost a 1 or a -1 would say that you have a 1-to-1 correspondence. So for each year you increase, you're increasing by 1 unit on the perceived stress questionnaire, or for example, like by 1 event on the undergraduate stress questionnaire. Now, when we look at a t-test, that's when we're comparing groups. So you're comparing the mean of 2 groups. And in this case, I have collapsed the sophomores and juniors. So we're going to compare the group of seniors to those that are lower rank at the university and compare them on their means for the undergraduate stress questionnaire and their means on their perceived stress. So let's get started and see what this hypothesis tells us. So we have our data and we have our syntax. Here's the correlation syntax. It's saying for perceived stress, the undergraduate stress questionnaire, and age, provide a correlation matrix. Here's the t-test syntax. It's saying for the 2 levels for class rank, 1 and 2, you'll remember 1 is sophomores and juniors, 2 is seniors, compare the means of the perceived stress questionnaire, and this one is saying compare the means of the undergraduate stress questionnaire. Now, we're going to go ahead and run this. And this is what we see. So in terms of, first let's look at the correlation. This is a correlation matrix. Now as you see on the correlation matrix, the top half is the same as the bottom half. So you only need to interpret the top half. And what we're seeing is there is a good correlation. This would be considered a good magnitude of a correlation for psychological variables. So we're seeing the 2 little asterisks. If you look down here, it says it's significant at the 0.01 level. So this is statistically significant. P is less than 0.01. For those that identify more stress in the undergraduate stress questionnaire also have higher perceived stress. That makes sense. But let's look at age. You can see they're not statistically significant. So we aren't seeing a relationship between those who are older and those having more events or having higher perceived stress. So why would this null hypothesis be? What are some ways that you can think, some reasons you might account for that age isn't a predictor for stress? And I look forward to reading about those in your paper. Now let's look at the t-test. So we had 17 sophomores and juniors and 33 seniors, and this gives our descriptive statistics. So we do see that we have a higher mean for sophomores and juniors. So for the for the perceived stress total score, they on average are 40.9. For the perceived stress for seniors, we're seeing on average 37.45. So already we know that our hypothesis is not supported, because we had said that we thought that seniors would have higher perceived stress, and it's actually the lower ranked students who have higher perceived stress. So if we scroll down, this t value right here, and if you remember back from statistics, anything greater than 1.96 or less than -1.96 would be significant based on a normal distribution. So this is a significant difference. So what we're seeing is our hypothesis is not supported, and in fact there's a statistically significant difference in the opposite direction. Our younger students in our class have higher perceived stress. Why do you think that could be? Now we can scroll down to the undergraduate stress questionnaire, and we do see the same trend that there are more events going on in younger students than in older students. However, if you look at the t value, that is less than 1.96, it is non-significant. So we aren't seeing a difference in the number of events. So that gives you a nice summary for hypothesis 1. We do not see a relationship between stress and age at all, and we do see a statistically significant difference between seniors and juniors and sophomores, but in the opposite direction than we hypothesized. And there is no difference between seniors and juniors and sophomores on the number of stress events. So now how can you draw in research explaining that? What are some things that you think might be going on?